The package arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, the kind of morning when Sarah usually ignored the world. She was already late for work, coffee cooling on the counter, voicemail blinking with reminders she didn't want to hear. She thought it was another Amazon delivery, something her husband ordered and forgot to mention. But the cardboard box was too plain, too carefully taped, with no company logo. Her name was handwritten across the front, the letters slanted and deliberate. She felt an immediate chill in her stomach, the kind that didn't belong to ordinary mornings. She tore through the tape with her keys, and inside was a single leather-bound journal. It was old but well-preserved, its edges frayed, its cover stained with faint rings, as though someone had once used it as a coaster during drunken nights. Tucked inside the first page was a folded letter. The handwriting stopped her breath. It was Daniel's. She hadn't seen it in over 10 years, not since the funeral, not since the day his car flipped on a wet highway and left her with 1,000 unanswered questions. The letter was short, maddeningly so. If this journal found you, it means my brother kept his promise. Read carefully. You never really knew me, Sarah, and you never knew yourself either. Her throat tightened as she read the words again and again. Daniel had been her first love, her fiercest heartbreak. He was the man she had once sworn she would never forgive, and yet here he was, reaching for her from beyond the grave. Her hands trembled as she turned to the first entry. August 14th, 2009. She lied again, smiled as though nothing was wrong, but I saw the guilt in her eyes. She thinks I don't know about the nights she spent with someone else. Maybe she believes I'm blind. I wonder if she'll ever admit it. Sarah's knees went weak. She had to sit down on the couch, the journal heavy on her lap. The words on the page didn't match her memory. In her recollection, Daniel was the one who lied, the one who disappeared for days, leaving her alone in that broken-down apartment with bills piling up. He had been reckless, self-destructive, impossible to trust. She had always been the one begging him to come home, not the other way around. And yet, here was his voice, raw and certain, accusing her of betrayal she never committed. She whispered out loud, "That's not true, Daniel. That's not what happened." Her husband, Mark, walked into the living room just then, adjusting his tie. "What's not true?" Sarah startled, snapping the journal shut as if it were evidence of a crime. "Nothing. Just talking to myself." He glanced at the package on the table, the shredded cardboard. "Another delivery?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Just something old I ordered." Mark studied her a second longer than usual, then shrugged. "All right, don't be late again today. Your boss already called the house once this week." When the door closed behind him, Sarah pressed the journal against her chest. She had 100 things to do, but none of them mattered. She needed to know what Daniel had written about her. She opened the book again and read until her eyes blurred. September 2nd, 2009. I confronted her. She denied it, of course, she always does. But I saw the way she avoided my brother's eyes when he came over. I know what's happening between them. She thinks I'm a fool, but I'm not. Someday she'll see what her lies cost her. Sarah dropped the book onto the floor, her pulse racing. She wanted to laugh, to shout, to rip out the page. Daniel's brother, Michael, had always been distant, polite, but cold. She hadn't spoken to him since the funeral. The suggestion that she had been involved with him was absurd, insulting. But as much as she wanted to reject the idea, something about the detail, the way Daniel described her avoiding eye contact, felt disturbingly precise. She remembered that night, though differently. She had avoided Michael's eyes because she despised his judgmental silence. She whispered to the empty room, "Why are you doing this, Daniel? Why now?" The journal gave no answer, only more wounds. She flipped through pages filled with resentment, jealousy, confessions of nights spent drinking alone while he imagined her somewhere else. He wrote of her laughter as though it were a weapon, her silence as though it were a verdict. Every entry twisted her memory of their love into something poisonous. Then she reached the final pages. March 11th, 2012. The storm won't let up. Roads are slick, dangerous. She thinks I'm at work, but I'm not. I can't face her tonight, not when the truth is so close. If something happens, let this journal be the record. Let her know that I was right, that I saw everything. Sarah's blood froze. March 11th, 2012, the night he died. The night his car had spun out on the freeway and crashed into a barrier. The night she had been waiting at their apartment, angry that he hadn't answered her calls. She remembered pacing until the phone rang, the voice on the line telling her he was gone. She had always believed it was an accident, a senseless, cruel twist of fate. But the entry suggested something else. He hadn't been at work. He had been driving with secrets burning inside him, convinced she was hiding something he could not forgive. Her breath quickened, panic rising like a tide. She clutched the journal, flipping back to the first page, rereading the letter that had arrived with it. You never really knew me, Sarah, and you never knew yourself either. Her phone buzzed on the table. She jumped, nearly dropping the book. The screen lit up with a number she hadn't seen in years. Michael, Daniel's brother. The journal lay open beside her, its words like open wounds. She stared at the phone, heart hammering. She hadn't spoken to Michael since the day of the funeral. Why would he call her now? And why, after all these years, had the journal suddenly arrived on her doorstep? She let the phone ring once, twice, 3 times, before she finally picked it up. Hello, her voice cracked. Michael's voice was steady, deliberate. You got it, didn't you? Sarah's hand trembled as she clutched the phone, Daniel's journal still spread open on the table. Michael's voice on the line was calm, but heavy with intent. You read it, didn't you? You finally know what he thought about you. Her throat dried instantly, but she forced words out. Why now, Michael? Why send me this after so many years? There was a pause on the line, only the faint hum of static filling the space between them. Because you deserve to know the truth. He carried it with him until the night he died, and it destroyed him. Maybe it's time it destroys you too. Before she could respond, the line went dead, leaving her staring at the silent phone, a suffocating weight pressing against her chest. She tried to call him back, but the number was blocked. She whispered to the empty room. What truth? What do you want from me? The journal lay there like a living thing, daring her to keep reading. She spent the rest of the day glued to its pages, her eyes consuming the angry scrawls Daniel had left behind. Each entry painted her as deceitful, manipulative, unworthy of the love he had given her. But between the accusations, Sarah found fragments that didn't make sense. Cryptic mentions of late-night meetings, shadowy figures Daniel said he followed, hints of debts or threats he never explained. If Daniel had been spiraling, had these suspicions been real or the product of his unraveling mind? She didn't know, and yet she couldn't ignore the way his paranoia seemed to grow closer to his death. When Mark came home that night, Sarah tried to hide her unease, but her mind was elsewhere. He noticed. You're quiet, he said, pouring himself a drink. She forced a smile. Just tired. But her heart was racing. The lies were beginning, and she hated herself for it. The next morning, she drove to the old apartment she and Daniel had once shared. It was now a different family's home, but standing outside on the cracked sidewalk, Sarah felt memories flood her. Shouting matches at midnight, tender embraces at dawn, and the last kiss they shared before everything fractured. She imagined Daniel sitting inside writing those entries, convinced she had betrayed him. The journal burned in her bag, begging to be consulted again, and she pulled it out, flipping pages in the parked car. One entry caught her eye, written just weeks before the accident. February 18, 2012. Michael told me he saw them together. Said he couldn't stand to watch me suffer. She'll deny it. I know she will, but he wouldn't lie to me. Not him. Never him. Sarah gasped out loud, her chest tightening with rage. Michael had told Daniel lies, deliberate ones. She had never been unfaithful, and certainly never with his brother. She gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. Why would you do this, Michael? She whispered. The betrayal tasted bitter in her mouth. She remembered Michael at the funeral, stoic and silent, barely speaking to her. She thought it was grief, but now she wondered if it was something darker, guilt, or satisfaction at having poisoned his brother against her. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept reading until the words blurred. The journal consumed her, each page like gasoline poured onto the fire of her doubts. Mark reached for her in bed, but she pulled away, mumbling an excuse about being restless. In truth, her mind wasn't with her husband at all but trapped in the past, reliving Daniel's voice through his writing. Days turned into a haze of obsession. At work, she hid the journal in her drawer, sneaking moments to read. At home, she buried it under blankets when Mark was near. But the more she read, the more her present life unraveled. She found herself staring at Mark across the dinner table, wondering if he sensed her distraction. His questions grew sharper. Who's been calling you lately? he asked one evening, eyeing her phone. No one. She lied quickly, too quickly. He narrowed his eyes. You're hiding something. And she realized, with a jolt of fear, that she was. She wasn't having an affair, but the journal itself had become a secret lover, consuming her time, her thoughts, her emotions. She had crossed into a place she couldn't explain. The tipping point came one night when another package arrived. Smaller this time, but with the same careful handwriting. Inside was a single photograph, Sarah and Daniel, taken at a summer fair more than a decade ago, both smiling as if the world belonged to them. But someone had scratched out Sarah's face with furious strokes of ink. On the back was one sentence. Ask Michael what he never told you. Sarah's breath caught, her stomach twisting. The picture was intimate, one she thought she had lost long ago. How had Michael gotten it? And why send it now? Panic and fury surged together, and before she knew it, she was dialing his number again. This time, he answered on the first ring. Why are you doing this? She demanded, her voice shaking. Because Daniel deserves the truth, Michael said flatly. And so do you. Meet me tomorrow night. I'll tell you everything. She wanted to refuse, to slam the phone down and lock the past away forever, but curiosity and anger fused into something stronger than fear. Where? She asked. Michael gave her an address, a small bar on the edge of town they had once visited as a group years ago. 8 o'clock. Don't be late. The line went dead again, leaving her gasping in the silence. Sarah clutched the journal to her chest, feeling its weight like an anchor. She didn't trust Michael, didn't even know if what he planned to reveal would help her or destroy her completely. But she knew one thing. She had to go. She had to hear what he had been hiding all these years, no matter the cost. The next night, as the clock neared 8, Sarah stood outside the bar with the journal in her bag, and her heart hammering so loudly she thought it might betray her. She took one last breath before pushing the door open, her eyes immediately locking onto Michael sitting in the corner, a drink in his hand, and a look that promised nothing but more darkness. The bar smelled of stale beer and cigarette smoke, the kind of smell that clung to clothes and skin long after you left. Sarah spotted Michael instantly, older and more hollow than she remembered, his once neatly combed hair now graying at the edges, his face gaunt, but his eyes sharp and unsettlingly clear. He raised his glass slightly when he saw her, an invitation but not a welcome. She hesitated at the door, clutching the journal in her bag like a shield, before walking toward him. You came, he said flatly, as if he'd known she couldn't resist. You said you'd tell me everything, she replied, sliding into the chair opposite him. So talk. He studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Daniel loved you, more than anyone. But he was blind. He couldn't see who you really were. Anger flared in her chest. I never betrayed him, Michael. Whatever you told him back then, it was a lie. His lips twitched, not quite a smile. Lie or truth, does it matter? He believed it. That was enough. Sarah slammed her hand on the table, the sound drawing a few glances from other patrons. Why would you do that to him? To me? Michael leaned forward, his voice low. Because he was unraveling, Sarah. He was into things you don't understand, dangerous things. And I wasn't about to let him drag you down with him. She frowned. What are you talking about? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, sliding it across the table. She opened it and saw an address scrawled in Daniel's handwriting, alongside a series of numbers and phrases she didn't recognize. Red Ledger, 2nd floor, only at night. Her pulse quickened. What is this? The last place he went before he died, Michael said, his voice grave. He wasn't just driving aimlessly that night. He was running from people who wanted that book. He nodded toward her bag. The journal you've been reading, that's not just about you. It's about them. Sarah shook her head, confusion thickening like smoke. That doesn't make sense. The entries are about us. Our fights, his jealousy, his accusations. Michael's eyes darkened. Read closer. Between the lines. He left messages there, Sarah. He wrote about debts, names, meetings. He was keeping track of things he never dared to say out loud. Her heart pounded as she thought of the strange phrases she had dismissed as drunken ramblings. If that's true, why send it to me now? Michael finally looked vulnerable, his voice cracking for the first time. Because they're looking for it. And if they find you before you understand what's in it, you won't survive. The words hit her like a blow. She stared at him, trying to decide if this was another manipulation, another attempt to twist her perception of Daniel and herself. But the fear in Michael's eyes was real. For the first time, she saw a man who wasn't simply cold or cruel, but haunted. She took a deep breath. Then help me. Help me figure out what he meant. Michael hesitated, then nodded slowly. Tomorrow. Meet me at the address. But Sarah. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. Don't trust anyone. Not even your husband. The warning sliced through her. She pulled back as if burned, shaking her head. What does Mark have to do with this? Michael didn't answer. He drained his glass, stood up, and left her sitting there with her heart in pieces. She drove home in silence, the journal heavy in her lap. Mark was waiting for her, his expression tense. Where were you? He asked sharply. Out, she said, brushing past him. His hand caught her arm, firm enough to make her flinch. With who? No one, she lied, yanking free. She retreated to the bedroom, locking the door behind her. Her hands shook as she opened the journal again, this time reading not for the accusations but for the coded fragments she had ignored. There they were, lines about debts settled in red, about the man at the bar who knows the truth, about the brother who can't be trusted. Each phrase cut deeper, reshaping her understanding of Daniel's final months. He hadn't just been drowning in jealousy. He had been hiding something bigger, something dangerous enough to still echo a decade later. Exhausted, she fell asleep with the journal open beside her. She dreamed of Daniel's voice, whispering warnings she couldn't quite hear, his eyes filled with both love and accusation. The next morning, she woke to Mark standing in the doorway, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. The journal was still on the bed, open to a page that mentioned Michael by name. Mark's eyes flicked to it before he turned away. Don't be late for work, he muttered, leaving without another word. Her stomach twisted with dread. Did he see too much? Could he know something? That evening, Sarah forced herself to the address Michael had given her, a rundown warehouse on the edge of town, its windows shattered, graffiti sprawling across the walls. She parked a block away and walked cautiously, her bag clutched to her chest. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of rust. Michael was already there, pacing near a staircase. He looked more agitated than the night before. You came, he said. Good. We don't have much time. He led her up the stairs to a room with a broken desk and scattered papers. He pointed to a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. This is where Daniel kept the ledger he wrote about. It's gone now, but maybe. A noise cut him off. Heavy footsteps echoed from below. Michael's face drained of color. They found us, he hissed. Go. Panic surged through her veins. Who? She whispered. But before he could answer, the door downstairs slammed open. Voices barked orders, unfamiliar but terrifyingly close. Michael shoved her toward the window. You want to know the truth? Then run, Sarah. Don't let them take you. She stumbled back, clutching the journal as the footsteps drew nearer. For the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah realized she wasn't just chasing memories anymore. She was running for her life. The moment the voices thundered up the stairs, Sarah's body moved before her mind could catch up. She bolted toward the broken window Michael had pointed to, clutching the journal so tightly it cut into her palm. Behind her, Michael cursed and shoved a metal filing cabinet against the door, the scraping sound drowned out by the heavy pounding of boots on wood. Go, he shouted, his voice hoarse with desperation. Don't look back. Sarah hesitated, her eyes locking on his for what might be the last time, but his glare was enough to push her forward. She climbed onto the sill and leapt, landing hard on the gravel outside, pain jolting through her ankle. She bit back a cry and forced herself to run, every step burning, every breath searing her lungs. She didn't stop until she reached the shadow of her car. She fumbled for the keys, shaking so violently she dropped them twice, but somehow she managed to start the engine and speed away. In the rearview mirror, she saw figures spilling out of the warehouse, but not Michael. Her stomach twisted into a knot. Was he still inside? Or had he been taken? She didn't know, and the not knowing ate at her more than the fear. The drive home blurred into a tunnel of headlights and panic. By the time she stumbled through her front door, she was trembling so badly she could hardly breathe. Mark was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, his face grim. Where have you been? He demanded. His voice was low, controlled, the kind of tone that made her skin prickle. Sarah froze, unable to form words. I asked you a question, he pressed, stepping closer. She swallowed hard. I was out. I needed to clear my head. He glanced at the bag still slung over her shoulder, the outline of the journal unmistakable beneath the fabric. His jaw tightened. You've been with him. It wasn't a question. Sarah's heart slammed in her chest. Mark, don't lie to me, he snapped, his voice louder now, sharp enough to cut. I saw the calls. I saw the messages. You've been talking to Michael, haven't you? Her lips parted, but no excuse would come. Silence confirmed what he already knew. Mark's face twisted, not with jealousy, but with something darker. Fear, maybe even rage. Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into? The question stunned her. What do you mean? She whispered. He didn't answer, only turned away, running a hand through his hair. You should have burned that journal the moment it came. Her blood ran cold. How do you know about the journal? He froze, realizing what he'd said. For a moment, the house was so silent, she could hear her own pulse hammering in her ears. Mark finally faced her, his expression hard. Because I knew Daniel wasn't just writing about you. He told me things before he died, things I hoped would stay buried. But Michael won't let it go, and now neither will you. Sarah staggered back, the walls closing in. What did he tell you? Mark's eyes flicked toward the bag, then back to her. Nothing you want to know. Nothing that will keep you safe. Before she could demand more, headlights swept across the window, followed by the crunch of tires on gravel. Both of them turned. Sarah's stomach dropped. Someone was outside. Mark grabbed her arm, his grip tight. Don't open that door. Whatever happens, don't let them in. Panic rose in her throat. Who are they? But he didn't answer, only pushed her toward the back of the house. Go. Hide. She stumbled down the hallway, clutching the journal, while the sound of fists hammering the front door shook the walls. Voices shouted from outside, demanding entry. Then came the crash of glass breaking, followed by the heavy thud of boots. Sarah ducked into the bedroom, locking the door behind her, and pressed herself against it, her heart pounding. She could hear Mark shouting, his voice drowned by chaos. A gunshot cracked through the air. She screamed, covering her mouth instantly, terrified they'd hear. Silence followed, deadly, suffocating silence. She sank to the floor, the journal pressed to her chest, her tears hot and relentless. Seconds dragged into minutes, every creak of the house a threat. Then came footsteps outside the bedroom, slow and deliberate. The doorknob rattled. She held her breath, praying the lock would hold. After what felt like eternity, the footsteps retreated, the sound fading until there was nothing. She waited, paralyzed by fear, before daring to peek out. The house was a wreck, glass shattered, furniture overturned. The living room was empty. Mark was gone. Blood smeared the floor near the broken door, but there was no sign of his body. Her knees gave out, but she forced herself to stand, to move. She couldn't stay here. Whoever they were, they would come back. She fled into the night, clutching the journal like a lifeline, her tears blurring the road ahead. With nowhere else to turn, she drove aimlessly, ending up in a deserted rest stop off the highway. There, under the sickly glow of a flickering street lamp, she opened the journal again, desperate for answers. She found a page she hadn't noticed before, words scribbled in a frenzy. If you're reading this, they already know. Don't trust Michael. Don't trust Mark. They're both tied to it. Find the ledger before they do. It's the only way to survive. Her hands shook violently, the world spinning around her. Both of them. Her ally, her husband. Liars, betrayers, maybe even murderers. She felt utterly alone, every shred of trust stripped away. The journal slipped from her grasp and fell to the ground, its pages fanning out like wings. In that moment, Sarah realized she was at the center of something she could neither understand nor escape. She was running from shadows with no one left to turn to, trapped in a web Daniel had left behind, and if she didn't find the truth soon, it would consume her just as it had consumed him. Sarah didn't remember driving into the city, only the blur of neon lights and the pounding of her own pulse guiding her through unfamiliar streets. By the time she stopped, the journal sat open on the passenger seat, its words burned into her eyes. Don't trust Michael. Don't trust Mark. The page felt like a curse, forcing her to face the truth she had been avoiding. Both men, her husband and Daniel's brother, were tangled in the same web that had killed Daniel. And she was next. She pulled into a dimly lit parking lot near an abandoned office building, the address scribbled in Daniel's coded notes. This had to be where the ledger was, the book everyone seemed willing to kill for. Her hands trembled as she stepped out of the car, the night air sharp in her lungs. The building loomed above her, hollow windows like eyes watching every move. She slipped inside through a rusted door, flashlight in hand, each creak of the floor echoing like thunder. On the second floor, she found it, a desk pushed against the wall, its drawers sealed shut with a rusted lock. Her heart raced. This was it. She fumbled through her bag, searching for something to pry it open, when footsteps approached behind her. She spun around, light catching a face she had dreaded and longed for all at once. Michael. His clothes were torn, his face bruised, but his eyes were steady. "You shouldn't have come alone," he said softly. "You'll get yourself killed." Sarah's throat tightened. "You lied to me. The journal says not to trust you." He winced, but didn't deny it. Daniel didn't understand. "I did what I had to do. But I swear to you, I'm trying to protect you now." "Protect me?" She snapped, her voice shaking with rage. "Like you protected Daniel?" Silence. The weight of the accusation hung between them, thick and suffocating. Michael finally sighed, stepping closer. "Open that drawer, and you'll see. Everything Daniel died for is in there. But once you do, there's no going back." Sarah's fingers twitched near the lock, torn between fear and desperate need for answers. Before she could decide, another voice cut through the air. "Step away from her." She turned, her stomach lurching. Mark stood in the doorway, a gun in his hand, his eyes wild. Her husband, the man she had once trusted with her whole life. "Mark," she whispered. He raised the gun, not at her, but at Michael. "Move, or I'll put you down right here." Michael spread his hands, calm despite the weapon pointed at him. "You won't shoot me. You need me alive." Mark's jaw clenched. "Don't test me." Sarah's body shook as she backed toward the desk, her mind spiraling. "What is this?" she screamed. "What are you both hiding from me?" Mark's eyes flicked to her, pain swimming in them. "I wanted to keep you out of this, Sarah. I wanted to protect you. But you wouldn't stop digging." "Protect me?" she echoed bitterly. "By lying? By letting them break into our house? By letting Daniel die?" The gun wavered in his hand. Daniel didn't listen. Neither did Michael. They thought they could play with fire. But this ledger, it's poison. Once it's in the wrong hands, everyone burns. Michael scoffed. "And you think you're the right hands? You've been in this from the start, Mark. Don't pretend you're the hero now." Sarah felt her legs give out as she realized the truth. They were both guilty. Both complicit. And Daniel's death had been no accident. Tears blurred her vision as she stared at the drawer, the ledger trapped inside. It held the answers, but it also held the power to destroy. "Sarah," Michael said gently, stepping toward her, "you have to choose. Give it to me, and I can end this before it spreads further." "Don't listen to him," Mark countered, his voice trembling but firm. "If you hand it over, you'll never see daylight again. Come with me. We can disappear. Forget this ever happened." Her heart screamed with the weight of the choice. Michael, the man who had betrayed Daniel, claiming redemption. Mark, her husband, whose lies had cut her deeper than any blade, promising safety that tasted like prison. Both roads reeked of betrayal, of loss, of ruin. And then it hit her, Daniel's words in the journal. If you're reading this, they already know. Don't trust Michael. Don't trust Mark. Find the ledger before they do. Daniel hadn't wanted either of them to have it. He had wanted her to decide. Sarah's hand closed around the flashlight, her knuckles white. "You both had your chance," she said, her voice breaking but resolute. She raised the flashlight and brought it down hard against the lock. The drawer splintered open, revealing a small leather-bound ledger, its edges worn, its pages filled with cryptic notes. She grabbed it and held it to her chest. Both men lunged at once, Michael desperate, Mark furious. The room erupted in chaos, shouts and struggle echoing off the walls. Sarah stumbled back, the ledger clutched tightly, watching the two men she once trusted tear each other apart. In the frenzy, the gun went off. The shot rang through the night, freezing her blood. One man fell, the other staggered back, gasping. Smoke hung in the air, acrid and choking. Sarah didn't wait to see who had fallen. She ran, tears streaming, the ledger burning in her grip. Down the stairs, out the door, into the cold night where sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Her body shook, Her lungs screamed, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Behind her, everything collapsed. Love, trust, family. Ahead of her lay only the truth she was now bound to carry, a truth that had already claimed too many lives. The night swallowed Sarah as she ran. The ledger pressed so hard to her chest it felt like part of her skin. The sirens in the distance grew louder, closer, but her legs carried her forward blindly, fueled only by the raw terror pounding in her veins. She didn't know if it was Michael or Mark who lay bleeding on the floor behind her, and in that moment, she didn't care. Both of them had betrayed her in ways she could never forgive. Both of them had chosen lies, violence, and control, and she was the one left holding the wreckage. She stumbled into an alley 2 blocks away, collapsing against the damp brick wall, her breath ragged, her hair plastered to her face with sweat and tears. With trembling fingers, she opened the ledger, flipping through its yellowed pages. The writing was dense, coded, and frantic. Daniel's words bled through every line, warnings and numbers and names she didn't recognize. And yet one thing became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just about family, or betrayal, or even Daniel's tragic end. This ledger tied people she had never met, politicians, businessmen, law enforcement officers, into something vast, something poisonous. This was the reason Daniel had died. This was why Michael and Mark had tried to claim it. And now it was in her hands. Her stomach churned as she realized what that meant. She was a target now, no different than Daniel had been. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every sound could be a threat. And yet, beneath the fear, another feeling stirred, rage. Rage at what they had done to Daniel, to her, to all the lives twisted and shattered in this hidden war. She had the power now. She could expose them. She could burn the whole rotten network to the ground. Her phone buzzed suddenly, shattering the silence. A text message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "We know you have it. Meet us before sunrise if you want to live." Her heart lurched. They already knew. Of course they knew. She dropped the phone like it had burned her and pressed the ledger tighter against her chest. She couldn't trust Michael. She couldn't trust Mark. And she sure as hell couldn't trust faceless strangers demanding her obedience. But what choice did she have? She could go to the police, but if the ledger was right, the police were already part of this. She could run, disappear, but how long before they found her? She could destroy the ledger, but then Daniel's death, all the suffering, would be for nothing. The weight of the decision crushed her chest until she could barely breathe. Her tears dripped onto the pages, smearing Daniel's ink into dark stains. "What do I do, Daniel?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "What do I do?" The silence offered no answer. Only the city hummed around her, uncaring, relentless. Somewhere in the chaos of that night, dawn began to break. The faintest glow of light touched the horizon, promising a new day that felt more like a curse than salvation. Sarah wiped her face and stood, her body trembling but her jaw set. She tucked the ledger into her coat and stepped back into the street. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to keep moving. Every step forward was a battle, every breath a reminder that she was still alive, still carrying the one thing everyone wanted. A car slowed as it passed her, the driver's face hidden in shadow. For a moment, she thought it might stop, that another threat had already found her, but it rolled on, disappearing into the gray of morning. She exhaled, shaky and weak, and whispered to herself, "Not yet." She thought of Mark, of Michael, of all the lies and betrayals. She thought of Daniel's voice in her memory, his laugh, his warmth, his warning. And she realized that no matter what choice she made next, she would never be the same person again. The ledger had already rewritten her life in ink too dark to erase. She reached a crossroads, 2 streets stretching before her, both empty, both unknown. The city was waking, indifferent to the war raging in her veins. She stood there, frozen between left and right, safety and vengeance, surrender and defiance. Her hands shook as she clutched the ledger, her pulse roaring in her ears. Then she took a step, not because she knew where to go, but because standing still would kill her faster than any bullet. She vanished into the waking city, the journal hidden but burning against her skin, carrying its secrets into the future. And with every step, the question clawed at her chest. Would she use it to destroy the liars, or would it destroy her first?